Without saying goodbye, Bridget Fonda, star of Single White Female and Jackie Brown, abruptly disappeared from television at the height of her career. She slipped out of the limelight and into the shadows without leaving a trace. 20 years later, she made an unexpected return amidst the chaotic. The public was shocked and intrigued by the scandal involving Bridget Fonda's husband, musician Danny Elfman. They wanted to know what happened to her, why she decided to leave her life as a great star, and if there were any hidden circumstances that contributed to her abrupt absence. Supporting Bridget starting with her birth on January 27, 1964, in Los Angeles, California, Bridget Fonda has been a prolific actress. Fonda was born into a famous acting family, so she was never your average kid. Film legend Peter Fonda's granddaughter Henry Fonda, niece of filmmaker, the illuminating light of the Fonda family tree has cast a shadow over Queen Jane Fonda since her childhood. The Fonda family stands as a lasting monument to American cinema, with its bright and eerily heavy shadows. In 12 Angry Men, Bridget Fonda's grandfather Henry shocked moviegoers with an unforgettable performance. Even near the end of his career, for the timeless classic The Grapes of Wrath, he was honored with an Oscar. In the middle of a beautiful pond, Bridget Fonda was born into an artistic family. Her aunt, Jane Fonda, was an accomplished actress and a well-known social activist who won 2 Oscars. Peter Fonda, Bridget's father, made waves with the counterculture classic Easy Rider. High expectations were too much for Fonda to handle. It was more than just a reminder of the family's greatness when Peter Fonda bluntly said that his daughter would have to climb Everest 4 times to succeed professionally, once for each great member of their family, and once for herself. Promising results. With a subtle recognition of the enormous pressure as a child, Bridget wore the weight of her illustrious family on her shoulders. Instead of providing as inspiration, Bridget Fonda was continuously judged and contrasted with her father, aunt, and grandfather. At times, these expectations felt like an unseen weight, putting her in unending feelings of inadequacy and uncertainty. Questions like, "Am I good enough?" continued to plague Bridget even after she had accomplished a great deal of accomplishment, as she confessed on multiple occasions. "Yes, the Fonda name is fitting for me." Being a young girl, Bridget went through a lot. Enveloped in the opulence of Hollywood, yet burdened by the expectations of her families, she possessed the ideal legacy on the one hand, and thousands of actors could only dream of having a launchpad like that. And then, there were those towering casts as shadow over the actors and actresses whose names will live on in cinematic legend. This is also the reason why, despite her brilliant smile and acclaimed roles, Bridget always felt an unseen anxiety as she progressed through her career. When one considers the life of Bridget Fonda, one sees a lady who fought valiantly to break free of the shadow cast by her family and establish her own identity. You have to ask, in the outset, whether the pressure from her family's, the weight of her legacy drove her down a perilous road, and she finally sought solace by stepping away from the limelight. Before said farewell to Hollywood, Bridget accomplished great things. She started writing her own story, one of perseverance, after her early part served as a strong response to every suspicious eye. Hidden gems and serendipitous moments. Starting off in a profession where there is a great deal of pressure and high expectations, Bridget Fonda was adamant about building her own career from the bottom up, refusing to allow the brilliance of the Fonda family influence her decisions. She started off small, but eventually broke through. In 1969, in the legendary picture, Bridget had her first on-screen debut. In the film Easy Rider, she stars and co-wrote with, even though he was only a transient figure, Father Peter Fonda was a powerful emblem of the artistic heritage in her family. It appeared as though this initial stride was a portent of fate, that the 1980s would see her embark on a career in film. Despite her best efforts, Bridget was unable to establish a lasting impact in her early forays into small roles in films such as Arya, 1987, and You Can't Hurry Love, 1988. Her father, the guy behind the Easy Rider film revolution, continued to be the center of attention in Hollywood. After much speculation, the question of whether Bridget possesses the necessary qualities to emerge from the immense shadow cast by the Fonda family was finally answered in 1990, when she was unanticipatedly cast in Francis Ford Coppola's renowned trilogy, The Godfather, concludes with Part 3. Although she had little screen time, Bridget brought great emotional weight to the role of Grace Hamilton. The role wasn't simply about the glitz and glamour of the Godfather film series. It was the initial. What few people realize is that Bridget stood alongside some of the most renowned stars in film history. Her involvement in it was no picnic walking into the audition room for The Godfather Part 3. Bridget was deeply concerned that her last name was the only criterion being considered. However, Francis Ford Coppola himself assuaged those fears by declaring, "You are more than a name. I think she's got what it takes to be a first-time star, so I went with her." From an actor whose abilities were questioned to one whose real talent was recognized, Bridget Fonda began a new chapter in her career with this part. Not only that, but she started getting noticed by big-name directors, who saw her as more than just Peter Fonda's daughter. This was a huge step toward breaking out of her family's shadow, and maybe even crafting her own tale. Though she didn't become famous overnight, Bridget received the self-assurance she needed to continue climbing the mountain of success that was The Godfather Part 3. From that point on, Hollywood saw a new Bridget, ready to seize the spotlight as she ascended Mount Everest. This is the golden phase of Fonda's career, and she is a promising young star. In 1992, Bridget Fonda had a prosperous career. Allison Jones, a young lady who was threatened and pursued by her roommate, was her first big break, catapulting her into the ranks of A-list actresses. With her stunning good looks and powerful acting chops, Bridget became an instant hit at the box office, earning 5 times her production budget. Her portrayal of human emotions, ranging from fear and vulnerability to strength and defiance, left an unforgettable impression on viewers. Still pushing herself to new heights, Bridget made a triumphant return in 1993's Point of No Return, an American adaptation of the French action classic La Femme. By embodying edgy roles that required both emotional depth and action skills, Nikita astonished audiences as she transformed into a cold-blooded yet captivating assassin. In 1997, despite her supporting role, Bridget's career took a turn for the better when she worked with Quentin Tarantino on Jackie Brown. Melanie, a young woman guided by Tarantino, is both careless and crafty. Bridget brought her own dynamic spirit to the role. With her nuanced and authentic performance, the 1998 film, often regarded as the pinnacle of her career, received critical praise and stood out as one of the best works of the decade. In 1998, she had a small role that garnered critical praise, further proving her ability to transform herself for any part. Both critics and viewers came to acknowledge Bridget as a genuine abilities that go beyond the Fonda legacy. On the other hand, since the late 1990s, Hollywood has never been one to gracefully retain the limelight. As she progressed through her film career, Bridget's popularity waned. Disappointed audiences in 1999 with the horror comedy Lake Placid, which she had hoped would revive her star power, but instead bombed at the box office and received negative reviews. CNN scathingly panned the picture, calling it neither scary nor funny, and Bridget Fonda's lackluster performance only added to the disappointment. In 2001, the stop-motion animated comedy Monkey Bone bombed at the box office, losing $7.6 million out of $75 million. David E. Kelley, the mastermind behind numerous successful series, offered Bridget a chance for redemption after the picture bombed, sending her into a crisis phase. However, this setback was far from the end of her career. Bridget had the lead role in Ollie McLaren's film, but she passed up the chance to star. Switching to television appeared like a setback for Bridget's career at the time, because it was still considered a secondary medium to movies. Callista Flockhart, who portrayed Ollie McBee, became an international sensation on television and skyrocketed to stardom in her own right after landing the part. As Hollywood underwent transformation, the divide between cinema and television started to shrink, but Bridget squandered the chance to reimagine her career. Her once proud triumph was swiftly overshadowed by a string of setbacks, and an ill-advised choice made by one of the industry's most promising talents. As new talent emerged, Bridget Fonda's star began to wane. However, it was the pressures of Hollywood and her own mistakes that ultimately brought her to a turning point in 2003, when she shocked everyone by deciding to retire from the spotlight permanently in pursuit of inner peace. The catastrophic turn in Bridget Fonda's life came on a wet day on the Pacific Coast Highway, when she was involved in a terrifying vehicle accident. Bridget shattered 2 vertebrae when Jaguar lost control and careered off the road, sliding down an embankment. No one could have foreseen that her career would be permanently suspended due to a single instant of loss of control. The injury did more than only hurt her physically. It also cut off her chance to get back on TV, leave the spotlight behind, and go out on an exciting new adventure. The pursuit of peace away from the bright lights of Hollywood in November 2003, barely a few months subsequent to this ordeal in 2005, Bridget Fonda and Danny Elfman had a private and understated wedding. This mirrored Bridget's approach to life after her accident. They had a son, Oliver Elfman, and from that point on, Bridget faded into the background, becoming a dedicated wife and mother. She settled into a peaceful life in Santa Barbara with her family, away from the scandals and demands of the limelight. However, in 2017, the storms that had previously surrounded Danny Elfman once again jolted Bridget's seemingly tranquil existence. When pianist N.A.B. Body accused Elfman of sexual harassment, including inappropriate behavior and nudity, while they were working together professionally, Elfman became involved in a scandal. The case concluded with an $830,000 settlement, but it left a lasting impression on public opinion. Many wondered about Danny Elfman's character, and if Bridget Fonda knew about the scandal. Just when things seemed to be settling down, in 2023, a new lawsuit surfaced, this time with an anonymous woman named Jane Doe XX as the accuser. The lawsuit claimed that the misconduct happened in 1997. That she attended the New York Film Academy at the tender age of 21. Public outcry was reignited when Jane Doe X testified that Danny Elfman had engaged in inappropriate behavior, including nudity and harassment, while she was asleep. This revelation not only exposed Danny Elfman's troubled past, but also brought attention to Bridget Fonda's decision to remain silent during her husband's scandals. While Danny Elfman's legal team fights the allegations, Bridget Fonda has remained silent, offering no defenses, explanations, or statements. She has further distanced herself from the media, which has only served to heighten public curiosity. Is Bridget patiently weathering these storms, or is she wanting to protect her family's privacy? Despite the constant barrage of distractions around her, Bridget refuses to budge from her decision to live in the shadows, away from the limelight. After more than a decade of being absent, Bridget Fonda made her triumphant return in 2022. This coincided with the return of Danny Elfman's scandal, which added fuel to the fire. Many assumed her silence was a sign that she was finally ready to face the public eye, but Bridget once again silenced them all by choosing not to comment. For many, this choice symbolized that Bridget Fonda had abandoned her fame, spotlight, and the obligation to speak out in the wake of her husband's scandals. However, for those who knew her, it was a brave choice. In a world where scandals could break out at the touch of a button, she opted to live her life independently and prioritize her family. She has decided to embrace her life after a series of unforeseen twists and turns, and although it may not satisfy public interest, it is her lovely from a Hollywood celebrity to a woman steadfastly in controversy, as Bridget Fonda has demonstrated. There are occasions when remaining silent is the most effective response. In the midst of Danny Elfman's ongoing battles with the law forever, there is one more thing that few may remember before Bridget Elfman's marriage to Danny Elfman. She was once a wealthy woman who walked away from a world where everyone thought she belonged. Much of Fonda's public and media attention centered on her private life. Without a doubt, her attractiveness and skill made her a highly desirable celebrity. Actors, both in her professional and personal relationships, she was in a relationship with actor Eric Estio, who played the lead in Pulp Fiction and Mask, for a long time. It was widely believed that Bridget and Eric would tie the knot after dating for 8 years in the 90s. People thought Eric was gifted, emotionally intelligent, and someone who shared rhythm, Bridget's artistic partner, and she secretly dissolved their relationship after her connection with Eric Stoltz. But they were a Hollywood golden couple and attended major events together. This country musician had a brief but highly known romance with Bridget. During that period, Dwight Yoakam, among the most famous people in the nation, their relationship ended suddenly, despite his reputation for rough male charisma in the music industry. Both parties opted to stay silent, which added an air of secrecy to the separation. Their pre-marriage connections were described as intense and magnetic, but the media speculated about them anyhow. Bridget, but she also showed that she was an independent, defiant woman who, despite the claims, would not be influenced by popular opinion. It is possible that Bridget's habit of keeping her private life separate from her public persona is the reason she met the man who would end up being her life partner, Danny Elfman. With grace and silence, Bridget entered that marriage. Departing from the superfluous din, grace and tranquility, though Bridget Fonda opted to withdraw from public view, her legacy and influence will go on. The enduring importance, she was one of the most gifted faces of the 90s, and her impactful roles ensured that her legacy will live on. Her breakout part in Single White Female was a financial success and played a big role in A Simple Plan is a classic that has stood the test of time thanks to Bridget's subtle performance and the emotional depth it conveys. It also helped establish the psychological thriller genre, which catapulted her to prominence. Behind the bright lights lurks Hollywood's merciless nature, and Bridget Fonda serves as a tragic example of that. Her abrupt departure from the screen is a chilling reminder of the cost of fame and the strength that comes from making one's own decisions, even in the face of immense pressure to constantly put one's best foot forward in one's career, even in the face of the inevitable sacrifices that come with it. As a symbol of talent, Bridget lives on in people's memories. A star who shone brightly but disappeared so subtly, leaving a trail of curiosity and regret in the wake of her departure. This star was beautiful and determined. Formerly a hallmark of youthful charm and artistic prowess, after over 20 years away from the limelight, Bridget Fonda now leads a life that is utterly different, one that is simple, peaceful, and far removed from the glamour of Hollywood. Danny Elfman, a musician, her husband, and their kid Oliver relocated to a tranquil during the COVID-19 epidemic. Bridget's parents sold their lavish Los Angeles mansion and ranch in Santa Barbara. This solidified her decision to live a life focused on simplicity, away from the constant chaos of the entertainment industry. But in 2022 and 2023, the media and fans were taken aback when Bridget made a handful of rare public appearances, which was somewhat unexpected. The once beautiful Bridget now has a new appearance: silver hair, a cavia frame, and less comfort. Able attire, the photos caused a stir, with several people shocked by her dramatic change. In response to the paparazzi's question regarding her potential acting comeback, several praised her poise and bravery for being true to herself and rejecting Hollywood's harsh standards. In a brief but impactful comment, Bridget said, I don't think so. Ordinary life is truly wonderful. This ended any discussion about her future in show business, as she saw her time away from the screen as a journey toward true happiness, not a loss. Born to Bridget Fonda now that Oliver Elfman has 19 years old, brought up in a quiet, unobtrusive household. August 2024 has been a very quiet month for Oliver. At LAX, the Los Angeles International Airport, Bridget and Oliver made yet another unusual appearance. Speculation about Bridget's marriage status began when she was seen without her wedding ring. This was especially true in light of the accusations against her husband. Neither Bridget nor Danny have spoken publicly about their relationship, so maybe this choice makes people think, has someone like Bridget Fonda, who was once at the height of her fame, made the wrong choice by choosing to live a quiet life? Abandoning all that is behind, is it a liberation or a loss that this woman has gone from being a gorgeous star to living a life oblivious to the world's judging gaze? Please share your ideas with us, so that we can commemorate her. Whatever Bridget decides, whatever unconventional it might appear at the height of her success, Bridget Fonda made the courageous decision to leave the glitter of Hollywood behind in pursuit of a quiet life with her family, away from the constant hustle and bustle of the entertainment industry. Her life is a tale of triumph, tragedy, and resolute choices. Although her fans were sad to see Bridget go, they also had great admiration for her for showing them that taking a step back isn't always a failure, but rather an opportunity to rediscover who you are. After more than 20 years, her roles in Single White Female and A Simple Plan are still going strong. Monuments to her impact and talent that will last forever. What about you? What are your feelings on Bridget's legacy, which she left behind by living truthfully despite the expectations and pressures that formerly surrounded her? Which of Bridget Fonda's roles did you find most memorable? Let us know in the comments and give this video a thumbs up. We have more motivational tales involving famous actors and actresses on our channel, so be sure to subscribe. Looking forward to our next video together.